Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion. My name is Domokos Meszéna, and I'll be your moderator for this session. I am Hungarian, and I am a biomedical engineer and a neuroscientist. And I just returned back from Boston a few months ago, where I spent 2 years working on developing novel high-density electrophysiological tools for intraoperative monitoring and research tools. So I've been in the OR many times, but I am a non-clinical by training. So I think I could be possibly the right person to be the questioner. What can I do as a researcher to make my study, my research, my grant solve real problems that are actually aimed at helping a patient in the best way, the best possible way, and how can I do this in a close collaboration with the patients throughout my whole research. So I am very delighted to introduce our esteemed panelists. So Astri, Arnesen, President of the European Federation of Neurological Associations, EFNA. Paola, Zaratin, Coordinator of Multi-Act and the Director of Scientific Research at the Italian Multiple Sclerosis Society. And Péter Kéri, the President of GAMIAN-Europe. So I would like to shortly to introduce yourself, and please shortly reflect on your why. What was your main motivation to take on these questions that led you here today? So Astri, please, if you can start.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So just to say a little bit about my background then, the reason I'm here at all is because I come from a family affected by Huntington's disease. So my mother passed away with the disease many years ago, and my older sister and my younger brother has passed away. And Huntington's disease has been part of my life since we knew about it 45 years ago, actually. And I've taken on some roles in the patient community ever since. And EFNA is really representing a lot of different diseases, but my personal experience comes from Huntington's disease. And why am I here? It's because what we have heard previously in these conferences, and we all know, is that there are very limited therapies, opportunities for people affected by neurological or mental conditions for that matter. And we need to do better. And I think coming from a patient community, we bring really needed and valuable lived experience. It's a unique expertise that nobody else can take the place of that role. We all bear different, very important hats in this multi-stakeholder collaboration that's needed. But the patient involvement should be much more incorporated and facilitated and supported to play a more important role.
Thank you so much.
So I'm Paola Zaratin, and so I got myself experience in neuroscience research before, at the beginning in academia, then 24 years in pharma, and in the last 14 years at the patient organization. And the reason why I'm here, because I believe that patient organization, and I'm saying this because I face the challenge of maximize the impact of research from different perspectives. I do believe that patient organization can offer a competitive skill in making the science with and of patient input actionable through multi-stakeholder approach. And so I think that it would be important to consider patient organization as a key stakeholder, because they can really add and help to develop this new discipline. So it's not something we wish to have, but it's something that is instrumental to face the challenges that we have discussed have been discussing during these 2 days. So, and I'm happy to share after my experience with the so-called multi-act project, that is a responsible research innovation project. And I'm chairing also a global patient-reported outcome for multiple sclerosis initiative that counts 60 representatives from 5 stakeholder categories. So I'm testing myself in the management of multi-stakeholder initiative.
Thank you.
I'm here. My name is Péter Kéri, and I can tell you that I am the only one who can say that I hate being here today. I hate being in this position where I am. And why is that? Nobody wants to represent those guys who we think they are mad, or they are people with schizophrenia or bipolar. Nobody. I did not decide this way. When I was 43, I had voices in my head. After a brilliant life, I led companies, I had 2 graduations, and I loved it. I loved my life. I planned my life being in Malibu today, not in this conference. But, you know, when you survive schizophrenia and when you are the one who find a way out from this awful illness, you don't have any other choice when you have a good, I don't know, ability to be with your fellow patients. So that's why I'm elected president of GAMIAN-Europe for the 2nd term for me. And my vision is that until I can do it, I do it, and I will try to include my fellows into research in any type of the fields where mental health even mentioned, because it is interested. It is interesting for all those we represent. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. I think it is always better to maybe hear the bad news first, and then the good news will come as well. I would like to ask you, what are the barriers today that prevent effective patient involvement or enrollment in research? Because I think the crucial role of patients is clear, and it's unquestionable, but we still experience many barriers that still prevent us being more effective in that regard. So if you can start shortly summarizing the barriers, I think we would start with that question. And I would love to open up our conversations at each step after a short summary. So we plan to do this interactive, and please raise your hand and join in if you have comments or questions. Thank you.
Barriers. You know, patients, we think that it is one word, so patients is something same. But patients are absolutely different, like you and you and you and you. Their patients are absolutely different like that. They have psychosocially different background, they have different diagnoses, they have different carers, they are in different settings, they have different life events. So for too many years, if you look at science and research, we looked at patients as uniform objects or subjects of something. And we are in a very good era today, because there are patients and there are patient organizations who bravely speak about the diversity of patients and understanding that that is what we need. We don't need uniform whatever boxes saying that, okay, I deal with Huntington's, for example, or schizophrenia. It is one box. No, we are dealing with different persons, different people. And that is a barrier, for example. How can we involve so different people same time in so different way? A researcher might say that it is time-consuming to understand all, everywhere, everybody. It is mission impossible. However, it is not. That's why, for example, good patient organizations are there to help research and to help professional writing, political decision-making, to have an impact from the patient roots. And that's why, for example, GAMIAN-Europe today is a patient-rooted organization, not a representative organization, but we really try to understand what they say, even those ones who are not listened. And one more sentence just for that. And who are those patients we working with? Not only GAMIAN, but research. visible patients usually, who tend to say that I want to be in the research, because they want. They decide, yeah, I want to change the world. But are they the best patients? Usually not always, because so many are in their homes, so many are stigmatized, not visible. They do not want to come, they do not want to participate. And I think it is very important to be proactive in this way. So research today and tomorrow will be proactive to say that I understand your point, hello, but you can help the future of this disease.
I agree with Peter, and a bit in line with what he said. And again, I believe that this is a science. You need to know how to do it, you know. And is a new discipline, is new competencies that we need to add to the multidisciplinary approach. We need to make sure that to enable public engagement in science and patient engagement in science, that we will be representative in a way we are doing this. So we need to move from individual perspective versus collective one, and patient organization, again, can do a lot. I mean, especially umbrella patient organization, because depending upon the research question and the agenda and the mission, we can understand what are the research questions we need to answer, and then engage the representative population, representative patient experience in order to make sure that this will be integrated in science. And this needs to be, again, a responsibility of the multi-stakeholder, all the stakeholders that are around what we have to achieve, you know. This is not like this today. Patient engagement is seen as a standalone strategy. It's not seen as a important component of the scientific agenda and of the brain research agenda. So we need the competencies for this to happen. And of course, patient organization has the power to engage the relevant population to make this happen. I agree that representativeness is a, patient expert patient is important, but the expertise need to be on the way they are releasing their experience, into science and integrating their experience into science, not because they are replacing scientists or expertise that can belong from scientists. This is a mistake we have been doing so far, and perhaps we need to rethink about this.
Yes, I'm thinking that capacity building, and also to learn from all stakeholders how to collaborate and make the best out of the different expertise we bring to the table. I think that's really important, because patients sometimes come to a table where you are presented with a protocol or a dossier, and you are expected to give input, which is really okay. That's not my expertise. So we need a different kind of conversation maybe to get the best out of that patient representative in that process. So I think that's all stakeholders need to kind of work together on how can we make this collaboration work best. And I think really the main factor that we need to look upon is the capacity building in terms of infrastructure, because patient involvement is requested everywhere, almost all the time. And my Hungarian colleague mentioned it yesterday. We need to support patient organizations to be able to play that role, because I was just asked for some patient representatives to give input to a project, and then they said, "Is it okay to pay for their time?" And I'm thinking, are you asking the scientists that question? Why are they asking us, is it okay to pay for my time? I need to pay my bills. I need to pay for my food. So why is that? It's a kind of a cultural thing also, that we are bought. If you pay me, I say what you want me to say. Give me a break. Give me a break. I'm here to advocate for the needs that we have and to bring my knowledge to the table to get the best output of whatever is being discussed. So I think we need to find ways like we do for political parties. We want them to play a role in democracy. This is a kind of a democracy. So we need to find ways to fund patient organizations and communities to play that role, to pay for people's time, to educate ourselves, to travel, to be here, to pay up front, which we always, more or less, not always, not here, have to pay. It's an infrastructure that needs to be put in place.
Thank you so much. That's, I think, a very important point. And I have never, ever considered the patient organization as a politician for disease people, like a patient population. I think that's a very, very good point.
Yes, please. Because it was something very good. Payment and value. Imagine the person, for example, a researcher, is paid because doing job. But there's, for example, mental health patient sharing the drama of his or her life throughoutly in front of you. Is it easy? No. Is it valuable? Absolutely. Is it not just like something must talk about, I don't know, from the past abuses, from any societal problems, and we think that they do not deserve value. They have a huge value in research, any type, and they do a lot to open, and they learn a lot how to open about their illnesses. Imagine it was not easy for me to talk like a person with schizophrenia in front of anyone, but in the 7 years I learned, you know, still is a question that, can I have a payment? Because if someone pays it, maybe pharma or this and that stakeholder will buy me. Still a question. Yes. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to add that European Commission already recognized the need of such a kind of expertise under the umbrella of responsible research innovation, you know. But someone has to execute such a kind of expertise that is very relevant for science of patient engagement and science with patient engagement. And so far it's been decided that before there was a dedicated program, then it was decided to integrate into the pillars of Horizon Europe such a kind of expertise. But still, and it was very good, for example, for open science, for gender quality plan, but for patient engagement, still we have a huge gap because we have a huge lack of competencies. So it's not only about the policy, but it's about really competencies, social science competencies that patient organization can bring on board. This is why I need to be a key stakeholder.
That means that we have a lack of education in that. So yeah, I think we will get back to the education part.
I'm Tine Kotai from Hungary, and I don't know exactly the situation, but I can imagine that the neurological and brain-related disorders are most even higher level stigmatized than other. I came another patient group. And now we are speaking there a new treatment, and pharmaceutical companies are try to come to us and involve the patient organization to recruit patients. And what that's my experience is that there is a legal. In Europe, in the European Union, there is a very strict regulation for the clinical trials. Compared to the US and America, it's totally different. So the patient organizations in America earn a lot of money on recruiting patients that we can't do it in Europe. So that's one. The other one is the missing trust from the patients. Even, I don't know, in Western countries, but in Hungary, it's sure that the pharma companies are the part of the devil and the negative and the dark side of the world. So that's absolutely absolutely not a stakeholder to cooperate with them. And another problem from the patient side that the absolute misinterpretation of the GDPR rules. So the patients. One part of the patients doesn't care about the real value of their health data, and on Facebook and social media they are they are opening everything and showing their medical files. The other end is strictly wants to keep their medical files, and nobody can reach it, and so on. So I think that's my view from the barriers. So in summarizing, there are many of the barriers, and we need to differentiate our strategy to be successful on that, not only by the stakeholders, but also to solving this negative impact and problems.
Thank you so much, and I think that's a very nice continuation, because I'm going to actually introduce the ethical and privacy data sharing questions as the next step. When it comes to research involving human subjects, I think we immediately have to remember ourselves about the ethical guidelines to keep the transparency, privacy, and safety, and these concerns should all be addressed. And yeah, so originally there was actually a session planned on neuroethics during this two-day workshop, but it was recently cancelled. So I think maybe we could mention it here, because our topic is maybe closely related, as we are now discussing patient involvement in research. So can you please shortly reflect on the data sharing policies, and what are the main key principles in keeping privacy and safety? Thank you.
If you don't mind. I was asked approximately 2 months ago in a precision psychiatry congress about if patients would like to share their old data with the researcher. And patients are asked many times, what are their opinion? If this question is given to a person, for example, with major mental health issue, I would say myself that if I can save the world, let's say, or if I can give a better future for others in the future, then certainly I would share all my life data with everyone. Does not matter, because if I can help, it would be normal. And I think mental health is a good example for that. What kind of data we are talking about? We are talking about abuse in the past. We are talking about inflammation combined with abuse in the past. Or we are having a bad family pattern in the past. I would love to share this data, but will my father or will the family members want to share those same data to save the future? Certainly, it is the biggest question. The patient, I think, we would love to share, but when we consider that many illnesses are trauma-based, then we can say the causes of trauma are much more than the patients themselves. So not everybody would agree on sharing all the personal data with that. However, we'd like to have less persons with major mental health issues in the future.
Well, I think that the issue with data privacy, from my perspective, and of course I'm not people living with the disease, is related to the fact that we are not informing people living with the disease what we are going to do with the data. You know, why we are collecting this data. So again, I think that if they would be engaged from the beginning and understand exactly what is the purpose to collect the data, they probably would have not cared about, you know, privacy issue. And I think that this is again an important scientific priority for us because we are in the era of personalized medicine, preventive medicine, digital transformation, and advanced neurotechnologies is going to be the tools at the service of this paradigm shift. So if you're not going to, and artificial intelligence as well, if you're not going to work together with the people living with the disease from the beginning, let them understand and explain why we are using this technology and collecting this data, And why we are developing algorithms that tomorrow is going to tell them, look, you're going to be sick in 10, in 10 months or whatever. This is going to be a big issue and lost in translation. So I think that, again, engagement and is at the root of, fighting against this concept that privacy is the issue, is an excuse, is a bit excuse, and especially now with the European Health Data Space initiative, the engagement of patients also in this process need to be, is very important.
Yeah, and you mentioned that from the very early involvement, we have to make it clear that these data, the individual data, while it is protected health information, but it is fully de-identified, right?
Yes.
So, and maybe this is not clear for the patients.
Yes.
Yes,
but because they are engaged only at the end of the story, no?
Yes. Yeah, and I think really trust is a major factor here, in of course, information, understanding, and trust building. And I think if in general, at least that's our standpoint in EFNA, is that we want the data to be collected and to be taken care of and used, because that's needed. But in every conference I am, people talk about, we have quite a lot of data, how can we make the best use of it? So you don't always know why you collect it or for what purpose. It might be very useful to have it in future, projects. So I think trust building and making sure that these are shared, the data are shared with good, solid scientists that are keeping a standard. That's what patients want in my understanding.
Thank you very much for all your comments. This is really, really inspiring. I have two different type of comment. The first is sometimes I think we are thinking about patient engagement in just the opposite direction as I think it should be. And what do I mean by that? We have the premise that researchers and patients are different people. And we are the same human beings. By definition, 20% of researchers have a mental disorder, because that's the prevalence in the population, or are parents of a person with a mental disorder, or are siblings of mental disorder. So sometimes we set limits or frontiers, and we listen to the other as if it was only a patient or a researcher. I myself have been problems being accepted in a patient advocacy group, being the mother of an intellectually disabled kid, but as I'm a researcher, then I was not. Once I heard voices because I had a brain tumor that made me hear voices. And again, so I think we can play very different roles and have different hats at different moments. So sometimes I think that we should think about this totally differently. We should take a research project, a clinical trial, whatever, and see which are the needs at each stage of the project design, and think who is the best expert to talk about that. So, for example, from methodology to design what kind of statistical analysis, I don't want a patient with a background in philosophy. But I can have a patient, a high-functioning autistic patient, as I do talk with all the time, with a degree in methodology, and in adding to the other experts in the research team. At the time of deciding what are the outcomes, maybe the patients or the researchers that are also patients are the ones to better decide which are the best quality of life primary outcomes they want. So I think we should think of the stages in the development of projects and see who is the best one or who is the best group to inform about that bit of the problem. And of course, from the beginning, then I'll talk about neuroethics in a different way. But I want your comment on this.
No, I think you're right. I mean, we are human beings, and we all have our lives, and they are all, related to so many different spheres and different experiences. But I think we are wearing different hats at the table at different times. So you can't be the scientist, or you bring your personal expertise also and lived experience to that table, but I think you should have another patient representative have that role in a project where you bring the science, basically, if that makes sense. It's not that you don't bring valuable experience from your life as well, but I think you should also have the other, because I'm really concerned about the representativeness.
Levels above each other. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a way how we have tried to meet the challenges with this multi-act project that we coordinate with the European Brain Council. And this led to the development of a model that is named multi-act, because self-explaining, you know, is a model of managerial model of multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary collaboration. Because what you're saying is very true, but for me, a way to address these issues is to make sure that we know how to manage multi-stakeholder collaboration, where people living with it is one of the key stakeholders. So it's not something different, you know. So if you have a mission, if you have an agenda, if you have a research project, then from the beginning you have to have at the table, you know, the different stakeholders, decide what will be the contribution of the different stakeholders and return of investment for the different stakeholders, of engagement of the different stakeholders. Because also patient has, for the data, for example, for any other aspect, need to see why is important their engagement. So at the end, it's very important that we invest in a framework model to ensure multi-stakeholder collaboration. And this is, again, is competencies that we need to bring on board. And the way how we address the representativeness story is not by having expert patient at the table, but having a patient organization that can make sure that can bring into the project, into the research, the perspective of a representative, collective, people living with the disease that are relevant to your research question. Because, I mean, in the era of personalized medicine, of targeting medicine, you cannot, you know, ask any patient, I mean, you need to decide who is the relevant people living with the disease that can help you with your research. So at the end is we need to learn how to manage multi-stakeholder collaboration, where patient is, people living with the disease is key stakeholders. This is what, you know, we need to, I mean, responsible research innovation challenge our idea of good scientist touch. They want us really to think about people living with the disease as one of the key stakeholders in a very pragmatic, scientific manner.
Can I add something to the ethical question outside the information and confidentiality, or did you?
I just wanted to answer the particular.
Okay, because I think what's really relevant also for this field and makes patient involvement even more crucial is that you have, I mean, you have conditions like Tourette or ADHD, where we are correcting people's behavior. And that's also a societal, psychosocial phenomena. So I remember I heard about a treatment that was developed for Tourette syndrome where you could really suppress the tics, which was okay. So the person didn't do the tics so much, but the anxiety grew. So for the well-being of the person, it wasn't really an improvement, but for the community, it looked nicer, if I can say so. So there are so many ethical aspects here also.
For sure, and it's so these diseases are always spectrum diseases. So where to interrupt, and yeah. So yeah, please, Peter.
Just two things touched me very deeply. You mentioned that we are on the same page because everyone can have something. So maybe a researcher could have depression, and the research person, for example, this and that. We might believe that it connects us, but it divides us. Because there is a point until you can hide it, and you do everything for hiding your own struggles. And certainly, who can hide the struggles, they will do everything to hide the struggle. It will create a behavior pattern. We see patients it too many times. So many times you will hear, I deal with addict problems, for example, and I have a psychiatrist always drunk. Who will have the problem? The patient will have a problem, and certainly the psychiatrist will be brave, good, outstanding. Or I have a psychiatric who has burnout. And it is impossible to cooperate. They will hide their inner thing, and the patient will be opened. So it will be absolutely divided. So I think it is a very idealistic, however, very nice imagination that we are on the same boat, in the same boat. I understand your point, absolutely. Okay. And the other thing, many times I see, and we plan European level researches together with patient organizations. And many times researchers tend to think after a discussion like this that in every moment we must include patients and we must find the right. There are parts where patient is not needed. I don't want to go to the lab and I don't want to see the, the glass whatever and the blue liquid inside of that. But in the planning phase, so when we plan research, being understood by patients, with the patients together, and acknowledging in which part, what kind of patient and what kind of patient inclusion can make a better research for you patients and for me researcher, I think that is good to understand. And there are good examples, and certainly I and you, we will talk about all things. But what is missing today, that putting together these best practices, I think it is a very, vacuum.
Can I add No, just to add to what Peter said. This is true for all the stakeholders, Not all the stakeholders are relevant for all the aspects of your research project, They are relevant for a certain part of, they have competencies for a certain part of the project. So if you are doing this kind of exercise or activity at the beginning in planning your research, you should do it also for people living with the disease. There is no difference at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with your view, and I have a lot of experience working with, well, in fact, I lead a program since 15 years ago for autistic people, all ages, and that was initially pursued by the Autism Federation in Madrid, and so they gave us the commitment to develop that. So it was them who said what they wanted and everything. But and so I think I have, and we have patient committees and everything. So that's my way of doing in not clinical work and also research. But I'm facing some challenges related to the representative of the patient groups. My field is autism, and this is low-functioning people, high-functioning people, and so on. And the perspectives can be very different. So it depends so much if you have a patient representative, even their perspective may be more limited than other person in the room. So to make the best out of it, I really think that's so important, as you were saying, to really learn and to really develop the competency to be a patient as a stakeholder for research, for example, and see what's your role and when, and different patients or carers or parents or siblings for different stages. So I think it's much more sophisticated than just including patients. I have read grants where patient engagement, the researcher was saying, yes, I include patients as participants, and they wrote that down under the patient engagement thing. So they said, you're not understanding anything. So for it to be really good, I think we have to sophisticate participation.
No, I mean, absolutely, and I mean, moving to the best practice,
With the next step, that leads us.
I mean, what I can tell you is that for multiple sclerosis, many European projects or IHI projects now are calling us to try to facilitate the application of this multi-act framework and to ensure that depending upon the research question, we are engaging globally the relevant people living with the disease. And one of the governance body we have established is named Engagement Coordination Team, means that you have, let's say 5 to 6 people living with the disease and caregivers, but they are not bringing their own expertise, but consulting through survey, through the global organization of a patient, the relevant community. So it's not, is making sure that at the table of the research, even if you have 5, 6 people, you will have insights from a broader population. This is a real facilitating activity and job and support that patient organization can bring at the table. Because I know that there are different patient organizations with different capacity. But if it's clear the research question and you have umbrella organizations such as for Multiple Sclerosis International Multiple Sclerosis Federation, then and you have a research staff network within this, then you can, given the research question, you can say, okay, this is the insights that I should receive from patient. And this is experience that is important for my research. How can you make sure is research into the research? This is why it needs to have budget allocated and resources allocated, because it's research into the research. But it's working. I mean, at least based on portfolio of multiple sclerosis is working. I think we can help each other to get this working.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are turning to the good news now. And could you please list some best practices, ways that did work in the past, because hopefully we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and but focus on the lessons learned from others, and maybe even cross-area examples, such as from cardiovascular or cancer, or like not brain-related studies where the patient involvement was maybe successful, and we could learn something from them. So if you or if you have any best practice from your own associations and past, that would be also very, very helpful for us. Thank you.
If you ask from other fields, I think I have very limited insights, but I can look from the outside on the cancer community, where the patient organizations have been able to build themselves really strong. I'm sure also with industry funding coming in there, but also playing a major role in directing research programs and being partners. And I think for the brain field that having patient involvement seen as partnership and equal level, and integrated into the research programs, for instance, as an equal partner, as the scientific community or academic community or whatever, can help us build that capacity that you are looking for, and to help us, understand what it means to be representing different perspectives. Because also when you talk to scientists or whoever you talk to in a group, you will have different points of views and different experiences, and we all have our darlings. So to be more aware of that, and to bring the training into that, to be able to represent us as well as possible is crucial. And I think it's not so difficult if we just put it into the infrastructure and make sure that we fund it. We can do it.
I can talk about the last 3 years and a bit about earlier. When I arrived at GAMIAN-Europe, mental health and brain health representation was something like we are there, we are trying, but what is happening in reality? What is that? And we had a brave initiative in 2019, where we wanted to depict why. Is it true that, for example, schizophrenia, major mental health diseases are same in countries? And after the research, it turns out that huge differences we can see in the healing of people with these major mental health issues, and we could create the first really outstanding material, a charter for patients with schizophrenia, and we could give it to governments that, hey, you do not fulfill the legal things even in your country, this and that way. We collected 12 pounds based on patient interviews, and we went to local places. And since then what I see, for example, my organization, GAMIAN-Europe, received a different look from others, because from that very moment we are included everywhere. What I can say today, if you call back the last renewal of the mental health European suggestions from Ursula von der Leyen, it was proposed by GAMIAN-Europe, for example. We are one part of that. So many, many sentences. We put together patient-rooted. I think it is an achievement, a very good practice. We were heard in European Parliament, so it never happened that mental health patients were asked to speak about what is happening in their countries. However, it can be your neighbor, your friend, yourself, and everybody. And it is the same with brain health. We are there. We can tell good practice. Certainly, I mentioned it yesterday. In the past, they created medications what was good for hair growth, and after they decided that, okay, it will be a good cardiovascular medication, and they gave to patients. And today we have research what patient initiated and said that we need a molecule, we need a substance for this and that problem of mine, and we can have the part of the medical research not just like I don't know, a patient to take the pill, but to design all the things, and certainly all other type of research and professional writing. We include patients as a democratic partner today, and the impact of these researches, these writings, these things all over the world is much better and bigger than it was before. And why I am saying that? Because you mentioned the cancer. And it was my point in the opening session that living with cancer is something that we must accept because it is around us. Maybe we can have cancer or stroke, so we live with like that. But we never think that maybe we will have schizophrenia when we are 40. We do not prepare for that. However, it can happen. It can happen. It is not pop music. We don't like that. We are not fan of mental health disorders. We do not support those guys who stand for mental and neuro. So,
perhaps there is another good case studies that is the initiative I'm chairing globally, that is the patient-reported initiative. Why I'm saying this, that goes behind multiple sclerosis, because actually, for example, we were recently at the Brain Innovation Day to discuss the importance of patient experience data for brain health research. Because one feature of all this disease is that you need to capture as early as possible sign, from people living with the disease and trying to turn this into data in order for scientists to use it, to treat the disease as early as possible. But in this case, this is not limited to multiple sclerosis, but since this could represent a very good example of indicator of impact for research that will be relevant also for patients, because there will be a way to show that there is a return of investment, a return of engagement in their participation into the research, because if they are providing data, and this data is going to be used for taking decision in research and care, this will be the best way for them to understand that the experience they are bringing into the research is meaningful, So I think that this is a kind of example where, we can leverage, efforts and resources to shift the paradigm, And having experience data as one of the key data of the ecosystem we have discussed this morning, data ecosystem, is crucial, because it's the way to show people living the disease that what they are bringing into the table is used to take decisions for research and care. It's their return of investment, their return of engagement, because otherwise, of course, they can look at the final therapy, but as Péter said, schizophrenia will be always there. For them, really, as individual or as a community, if they are going to see that their data are using to take decision. So this is why, for example, this kind of platform will be a way to work together. It's not only multiple sclerosis. It's something that will be crucial for brain health research, preventive, and personalized medicine. So it's something that can collect the community around the same topic and argument.
Thank you so much. And until now we were talking about the organizational level, the top-down, the regulatory level. And I would be very curious if there are any bottom-up ways to at least raise the awareness, our awareness, because we can be the next patient at any day. Are there any civil initiatives or bottom-up ways to shift the focus a little bit to patient involvement and our role in the future research? I'm not sure if, for example, I can recall the climate change, and we all have that in our mind that there is this saying, think globally, act locally, for example. There is this nice motto, and we always can remind ourselves when we are collecting the rubbish selectively and things like that. It would be so nice to shift the focus and raise the awareness for patients to be more and more involved. And if you could reflect on that. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting, really interesting. Because I remember, well, there was a young scientist, she was based in Toronto, actually, in Canada. And she put up a camera and she started to blog. She was a basic scientist. She started to blog to the community for Huntington's disease, which was the field she was in. I think she did it more or less every day. And she got a lot of followers. So I think scientists can do a lot to help us understand what you're actually doing. A lot of people thought it was really interesting to look into the tubes and whatever she was doing, and she's really, you know, inspiring to listen to also. So I think there are things that individuals can do in terms of being able to create better understanding just around you. And I think also the patient community, I mean the peer-to-peer stories that we share is super valuable, where we have, you know, where I go to whatever meetings in my community with different diseases also to talk about what we do here and why I think it's important and how we can engage, and being an advocate also kind of internally is important. And then also I think if you have patients or participants in clinical trials, sharing their experience is so contagious in terms of others being inspired and learning from those experiences is also one thing that individuals can do.
You asked. You just asked from down. Imagine that you plan a research about, I don't know, bipolar triggers, biomarkers, and you're in your office. It will be a good idea. I will do it. I will be funded by EU. I have this. But imagine another way. You spend half a year among persons with bipolar disease, and you understand them. They are your fellows, nearly, or they are around you, and you understand what are their needs. And after you decide what kind of research you will do, it is something down. I tell you a not really nice example. We have a not big but very friendly office in Brussels. Patients are there and my colleagues. And I always ask them how many times researchers visited us. Did you have any guest in the last 2 months? No time, never. I go to researchers and I go everywhere to make myself visible. However, we are there. Everybody knows that we are collaborative. We are there for helping. But today, what we can see, I think worldwide, if a patient organization like us, we create a huge webinar chain, for example, throughout the year. Many researchers are there to understand what is the actuality of this and that mental health or brain health problem. And I think engaging in those types of presences are very nice. And we lack researchers and we lack professionals because they think that, okay, it is for a patient, that it is GAMIAN-Europe, but why should I participate in, I don't know, an art webinar in connection with patients? However, it is crucial to hear the voice of someone with the disorder living in that moment. That was my point.
Yeah, testimonials instead of textbook descriptions. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, based on what we heard, I think that I like to come back to the idea of having, you know, an academy about advocacy. So we need to be more, to enrich this idea of having an academy about advocacy, because it's not only advocacy. Advocacy is, we should all advocate with our competencies for the brain research agenda, brain health research agenda. So I think that such a kind of competence need to be part of academy, means also, you know, scientists need to learn how to bridge science to people living with the disease, because this is something that, for example, in Italy, we are trying to develop a network of people living with the disease and researchers, you know, in order for them to speak the same languages. That is very difficult. Even when you have a grant and ask someone to do a lay summary, my God. I mean, the lay summary is even more difficult than, you know, the English pure, you know, summary or technical summary. So I think that there are competencies, there are expertise that we need to develop all together, also by cross-fertilizing, you know, across the different stakeholders, but in support of this multi-stakeholder, you know, model of collaboration and partnership, because this is something that could be of help.
Can I just, before we close, mention one very good example, and that's an initiative by a Spanish man. His father was affected by Alzheimer's disease, and he created this concept of walk the talk for dementia, where he invites experts, family members, people with the disease to walk 5 days at the Camino de Santiago. So they walk, they wear their caps, but if you are a scientist or a patient, you can't tell. And you have this conversation. You know, when you walk, you get the flow. And then they end up with a symposium and discussing their experience. And I think that's also a very good example of how we can leverage each other and share whatever experiences we bring into that conversation. So I think that's a very good example to end with, actually.
So that's actually the perfect ending statement. Walk together, patient organizations, governmental bodies, and researchers and patients. So let's walk together, and we would. I would like to invite the audience. If you have any questions at the end, now we still have like time for 1 or 2 questions. If not, then I would like to. Thank you for your.
Let's eat together.
Let's eat together. That's also very important. Yeah. So thank you so much, and I would like to close our sessions. Thank you.